All right, the fourth video here, the the way increased awareness video by Joseph Rodrigues.
Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about awareness. Now, as we go through this program, we are going to identify certain limiting or disempowering beliefs within ourselves through the process of raising our awareness, as well as identifying certain positive or empowering beliefs that we want to further stimulate and further encourage into our subconscious so that we can saturate our reality from those beliefs. So when it comes to awareness, we can look at it from two perspectives: pure awareness and awareness. Let's talk about these. When it comes to awareness, it is defined as knowledge or perception of a situation or fact. In other words, you're able to look at an outer world experience, and as a result of the experience, you're able to identify what it means to you. What is the meaning that we are associating to the experience? Relatable to people, environment, circumstance, and information, this meaning that we are identifying. So if we can identify what this meaning is that is disempowering or limiting, we can change it so that we can be in alignment with our vision via our identity. As the beliefs change, the identity changes as well. We want to be able to identify what we are assigning meaning to on the day-to-day journey, and we'll go through this via our exercise. Awareness is also known as a state of being conscious of something. It is the default state of your existence, being conscious. You are consciously aware. Although what we want to do is raise our awareness, thus raise our consciousness, so we become even more conscious between the relationship of our subconscious mind and the outer world experiences and relationship to people, environment, circumstance, and information. It is the ability to directly know and perceive, to feel and to be cognizant of events, life experiences. On the journey to realizing your vision, you will have interactions with people. People will be involved, depending on what your goal is. Usually in the entrepreneurial space, this is true. Circumstances, certain conditions may be experienced in reality, such as what we would call a temporary setback or a setback. Let's say a person moves forward towards building their business and they experience procrastination, or they receive rejection, or they internalize certain meaning related to these attributes and thus feel immobilized or disempowered or stagnation, any kind of emotional reaction that at this point in our journey is going to raise awareness as to the meaning we are identifying to whatever experiences that show up. And as we change subconsciously how we relate to these experiences, these events, these circumstances, we change. And as a result of the change, reality changes. And this change can be facilitated through our behaviors, our capabilities, and certain environmental changes that seem to happen on their own, although driven from the subconscious without necessary conscious awareness in how it happens. We are at ease with it. We're happy with it because we have experienced the change. All of this is about raising awareness on what is within our subconscious as far as beliefs go. Awareness can also be looked at as concern and about being well informed on particular situations or development. Concern about well-informed interest in a particular situation or development. So people become more aware about the way they have been living. And perhaps the way they have been living is far from ideal. Maybe they don't feel that they are living according to how they really want to live, living their purpose, living their mission in life. Or maybe they see something in reality where they want to change it. Maybe in the workplace, certain team members are not experiencing a flow-based workday as a result of some perhaps office drama or office politics or some kind of inconsistency in the company's vision and the way the staff and the team members are playing out, which is incongruent to that vision. They have awareness that there is an incongruence. So then what we do is we work on changing this. Now, this goes beyond the leadership or the communication parts, which is discussed in the communication program. This is changing it in relation to in a way that allows us to do something about it. Otherwise, a person might have fight or flight against the experience and thus not make progress, such as, for example, let's say in an organization or you're building a team, what you notice is that some of the team members are not aligned in their actions and how they relate to others in relation to the company vision. And you want to do something about it, you want to change it, but you feel fear of criticism, which we're also going to talk about in a moment, one of the 6 basic fears. And as a result, you prevent yourself from having the conversation with the individuals to bring them in harmony, to help them realize this inconsistency, because maybe you are afraid that you won't say the right thing, or it's going to come off in a way that will create unnecessary friction and turmoil, which will make your position even more challenging. Now, these are interpretations. So what we want is to identify what meaning we are assigning, usually a fear of criticism, and work with the subconscious mind modalities to change our beliefs around. So then what we'll find is that it's easier to have that communication. Or a lot of times we'll be sub-communicating. Or somehow the relationship changes as a result of how you navigate in that environment. Others are inspired by you. We call this state transference. We'll talk about this in the program. Regardless, this change is happening within. You have changed something as a result of the awareness on this particular circumstance that is playing out as theater in your business or in your team. Maybe before you did not have awareness on this. Maybe you just accepted it as the norm. But at some point, you saw that by doing something about it, by changing how you relate to it, you can evolve the team relationship so they're more in harmony and the team moves forward towards a vision. Another way of looking at this is, and we want to distinguish between the two, is pure awareness. So you've probably heard this discussed a lot in spiritual information, where they say just be. So just be means to just be aware without identifying anything, without thoughts, and without putting out any labels on what you are observing, be it a person, a circumstance, some information, and so forth. Without adding identification or meaning within, we are aware of our experience. Now, this is very nuanced, and this is something that's practiced through meditation as well as working with this information throughout this program. Because as you work with this information, what happens is within ourselves, we don't identify with certain interpretations that seem to create unnecessary reactivity or tension with whatever it is that we are interacting with. Information, such as maybe you read something on a blog post or you watch a video in which it evokes a fight or flight response within you. Then you find yourself being reactive and angry. And then you pause and then you say, how did I find myself in this situation? Well, one thing that could be very beneficial for us as we develop the
Now, one thing that I want to comment about here is this awareness. The more you are working with it, the more you are building this greater awareness, the more you understand that there is a relationship between your conscious and subconscious minds, and the world, practical world in which you live in. This is practical working situations that uh, work themselves out for your betterment and for the group's betterment as you work on this awareness and as you work with the subconscious and as you work with your beliefs and your awareness with these beliefs. What's stopping the flow? Uh, what is creating a problem or tension or uh, resistance? How do we get to a greater flow and a greater unity in that flow so it is synergistic with the other individuals in the group? This is important because the more synergistic energy you have, the more unity, more flow you have, the more abundance there is, and the more unity is, and the more joy there is in the work environment, in the personal environment. Very interesting.
This understanding between the correlation of our inner interpretations and beliefs and reality is the ability to pause mindfully and take a step back, to just be aware.
Now, this is just being aware, this pure awareness that you don't have to work much on and it flows to you. That's a lot of the spirit, it's a lot of faith and belief, but it's also a meditation where you say, I accept it, I work with it, and I flow with it. These things overlap, but to be able to step back and take a look and get rid of the tension or the negative emotion or the resistance and make the corrections that are needed so the flow increases and there's more unity, more love, more peace, more joy in those relationships. Uh, Also more prosperity and more abundance. These things are overlapping, they're connected, and they're part of a greater universal whole.
Of your existence, and that we are observing whatever it is that we're looking at, be it the blog post or the video, and assigning inner meaning, which could be stimulated by the content of the video. But ultimately, we are the ones assigning meaning within. This state of pure awareness is your default state of existence. Really reflect upon this for a moment. When you showed up into this world, you had very little association to different people, circumstance, environment, and information. The meanings, the associations, the perspectives, they were formed through life experience or through others teaching us how to interpret life experiences. And that's what formed these beliefs that are within us. And over the course of our journey, we form many beliefs, many associations. In this program, we're going to go through identifying what these beliefs are through the process of raising our awareness. And we also identify the core beliefs that seem to spawn into some sub-beliefs. We'll talk about this in the upcoming videos. Right now, we want to focus on this awareness that we have, that we are able to identify. And one of the ways that we identify the disempowering, limiting beliefs is through tension and reactivity, which we'll talk about in a moment, as well as the empowering beliefs based on how we feel. We feel good, we feel connected, we feel in flow. We feel that our goal, our vision will be brought forth, otherwise known as faith. Remember we spoke about this earlier? The combination and working with beliefs and empowering beliefs to bring us into higher degrees of faith. And what we want is, as we go through this program, identify these limiting beliefs, encourage the empowering beliefs, and then what we'll notice is that we're a lot more at ease as we integrate with our day-to-day experience. Then, through combining it with mindful change in our environments, which we're also going to talk about, what we'll notice is that it'll be easier for us to, if we experience reactivity, to detach from that experience for a moment and just be aware. It is through this pure awareness that we will then find from within the accurate meaning and interpretation on what to assign to the experience to allow us to move forward, or the conversation. This is very powerful when it comes to communication and leadership. You'll notice this more so, your ability to do this. And I trust that you've had many experiences in your life where you've felt this. And my goal through this program is to encourage that within you more so. So awareness, bringing awareness onto what's in our subconscious via the theater that plays out, which indicates our beliefs, and then pure awareness, detaching from it as needed. Not all the time, but as needed, because most of our life is engaged in what we're doing. We're one with what we're doing. But every now and then we want to be able to detach from it, either through a process like meditation or through conscious detachment of it and just being present, just being aware. And I trust that this definition of what is oftentimes referred to in spiritual information makes even more sense to you now because it's practical. It's something that you can do and something that you can practice. So you choose what to focus on in essence while practicing letting go of what you have chosen not to focus on with acceptance. So none of this is done from a place of denial. Our emotions, our thought process, and how we physically react and respond provides optimization data, allows us to identify what's within our subconscious, and to make the appropriate changes if needed as we work through the four modalities, which are subconscious mind audios, self-talk, revision, and environment. So as mentioned, when we're looking for limiting beliefs, disempowering beliefs, what we're looking for is tension and reactivity. This can happen when we're interacting with people, such as in a conversation we feel tense or reactive based on something that they said, which is indicating something within ourselves. Now, we can either have a fight or argument-based response with that person, or a flight response, run away from it, reactivity-based responses for fear, which a lot of times is wired in instinct. And what we're looking to do is evolve this for certain areas of our life. We don't have to do this with everything. In relation to our goal, in relation to our vision, and now you see why I recommend the importance of setting a goal or a vision, because then we can do a comparison, compare it up against something, and form the accurate association. So rather than fight or flight, we may pause, reflect, find the true meaning, identify with that meaning subconsciously, and then move forward so that we experience the change. Or through some exercises as we go through, journaling, which I'm going to discuss, or working with this mind map that we've been building, or the workbook, you can take the information that you have identified, the associations, the meanings that you've identified within yourself, that you are assigning to those outer world experiences, the people, the environment, the circumstance, the information, and change it using the subconscious mind modality so that you automatically respond in a way that's ideal. Or you're able to pause as needed, doesn't necessarily have to be rapid, rather than going into fight or flight, reflect and mindfully reply, mindfully respond, mindfully take the action or no action. Sometimes it just might be required to do nothing about it at that particular time, or let it be, as we sometimes say, also in spiritual information, let it be. Now, the discernment is found within through removing the disempowering limiting interpretation in relation to our vision on the journey and these elements of experience. And then what happens is this optimization data becomes valuable. You see, then the value of this journey is enormous because maybe we were not going about the journey in a very conscious way that is being articulated in this program. But now we're going to value what shows up, essentially what shows up during the day as far as beliefs. The beliefs are being revealed on the journey, and we can change them if they needed to be changed. And remember, This is essentially allowing us to discover that we have the power. We always had the power within. However, we may have certain interpretations or had certain interpretation that seems to convolute the idea that we have the power within. Now, you probably recognize it even more, which is that you have the choice as to whether you want to react or respond or do anything for that matter based on stimulus that you are experiencing as you interact with your experience in life on your day-to-day journey. So we are raising awareness on our beliefs, on our inner interpretations, what we are assuming, what we are perceiving, and we're also finding out how these perceptions are formed. A lot of them can be wired to the 6 basic fears as discussed in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. We've got fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of ill health, fear of loss of love, fear of old age, and fear of death. These kind of categorizations help us discern and work on our beliefs individually. See, if we look at fear, fear is fear. But then if we take fear and we segment it and say, we might have a fear of poverty that could play out as something like unnecessarily over complicating the business model or taking action towards producing success because subconsciously you don't feel like you really deserve the success financially. That's a form of fear of poverty playing out as theater in what may appear as a covert way. But as we look at awareness, we start to find the correlations between how we are interpreting what we are doing and what it means at a deep level. Another way the fear of poverty could play out is if a person is afraid to invest in themselves, to move forward, to invest in business. It's not about using money in a way that is not mindful, but rather think about it, reflect upon it, analyze the decision, but not feeling overwhelmed by it. See it as a fun journey to figure it out as you move forward. Now I'll reflect back on my own experience. When I was growing up, I had a lot of fear of poverty because it was instilled with me based on certain experiences and interpretations of those experiences that I had formed and others had shared with me. Some of the ideas that were instilled with me was that I had to go down a certain career path in order to earn money. And if I went down another path in life, such as entrepreneurship, it was extremely risky. And as a result, I could end up losing money or in debt. Although on one regard, it does seem valid that there may be certain entrepreneurial endeavors that carry more risks. Upon reflection of these interpretations, I realized that it was not related to me because I am an entrepreneur. I have this entrepreneurial side. And it's easier for me to see opportunities when others see obstacles. So maybe for others, it'd be wise for them to go down certain pathways outside of the entrepreneurial pathway to earn a living, to make money. But for me, it was far easier. All I had to do, because it was naturally within me, is to change those interpretations that were provided to me by others who perhaps were on a different pathway. And that's fine. Fear of criticism. So one of that we want to work on within ourselves, perhaps, is this idea that people won't accept us for who we are. And as a result, we might find ourselves challenged to express, to communicate, to put out content, for example, if you are in the social media space, or speak publicly, or to do sales calls, because we're afraid of what people will say to us based on what we're offering and who we are. Now, as we go through this process, we're realizing that these interpretations of the responses that we get from others are associations subconsciously that we have formed throughout our journey. And just as we have formed these interpretations, these associations, we can change them. So then we can start to look at criticism from a different perspective. And we'll go through examples throughout the program, but here's an example. Rather than looking at it as criticizing that you are not good enough as a person, whenever you receive certain kinds of feedback in which we label it criticism. We can look at it as what's the optimization data? What of this may be valid, and some of it might not be valid. Maybe none of it might be valid in relation to your vision, and that's okay. But at least from looking at it from that perspective and ingraining this kind of interpretation into your way of being, impressing the subconscious with this kind of interpretation and living from this perspective, you'll notice that you're a lot more mindful as to the kind of feedback that you receive. And if something appears as harsh criticism, you won't take it very personally in a way that lowers your self-esteem or brings forth certain kinds of reactivity within you in which it translates over to fight or flight. Fear of ill health is another one. Our goal is to maintain our health, eat healthy, exercise, do all the things that we know we have to do. We know the things we have to do to maintain it. But one of the fears that might show up is, what if I catch this? Or what if I get this? Or what if I get that as far as illness goes? Or a perpetual worrying of potential illnesses that never seem to show up, but yet they cause us to feel, or the thought process in relation to illness or ill health causes us to feel very tense, stressed out, and unnecessary reactive to certain information regarding health. As we identify this program within ourselves and change it, we now feel at ease with our health. And then actually what we find is we don't stress ourselves out, and our immune system improves as a result of it, and our health also improves. And then we're a lot more able to make conscious decisions, ideal conscious decisions in relation to us, which also further improves our health. For me, this was never a thing that I worried about. It was always, as mentioned earlier, fear of poverty and a lot of fear of criticism. But for some of us, this can be a challenge, the fear of ill health. Now, the next is fear of loss of love. So love is an important topic. We all want to feel love, express love, be in love, love with personal relationships, business relationships, different kinds of expressions of love, and love with our business. But we want to do things from a place of love and experience love, feel love, and be loved. And we also want to love ourselves. The fear of loss of love can bring forth certain kinds of convoluted and inappropriate thought processes and behaviors in relation to realizing that your true nature is love, and thus convolute the journey and make it stressful. So we also want to observe any kind of fear of loss of love, as in losing love, romantic love, losing the relationships in business, because this can be common even in the world of business. Groups of individuals get together and they form a business, but maybe a few individuals want to transition and they want to move on in a different initiative or a different role or into a different business. The entrepreneur might find that they were very attached to them and then have a hard time dealing with the idea of the other person leaving, thus impacting their performance, stressing them out, and may even bring forth certain unnecessary behaviors to stress out others on the team, and even scarcity-based thinking. So, once we accept, and we go through this journey and accept it more so this is an ongoing journey, that all love is within ourselves, we find it within ourselves, we can also learn to love others authentically and feel a deep love connection that transcends any kind of strings attached type of meaning. This is something that we identify through this process. If a person has fear of loss of love, they might find themselves settling in certain relationships that would not be ideal for them. They may find themselves settling in certain kinds of team relationships or client relationships that are not ideal for them because they're afraid to lose the money associated to those dealings. And the idea of attaching it to money also combines fear of poverty and fear of loss of love. So one of the reflections upon this discussion is these might not just be linear, one-to-one kind of correlations. They can have a multidimensional correlation effect. such as the example that I just gave, fear of loss of love and fear of poverty. Then we have fear of old age. So as we go through this life,
we're going to stop here. There's 30 minutes into this, but this last part of this loss of love and how income is related to that and relations with that and rejection of that, that is very interesting. I never fully considered that, so I need to be more aware of how that is connected. Very interesting, very powerful. I'll have to review this again. Okay, we'll get into part 2 of this later. Suggest that you look at Joseph Rodrigues and his program. Very powerful. Good day.